Zelda Tears of the Kingdom gets a Switch 2 update. This is without a doubt the biggest Nintendo Switch game of all time, with Breath of the Wild being a close second. I know it didn't win Game of the Year, but that was a tough year to win. For me, this is one of the best games of the last 10 years. If you already own the game, it's a $10 upgrade, or if you have Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass, the update's included. And yes, all the save data automatically gets transferred over to the Switch 2. In fact, there's still a link between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 even after the fact on the cloud, so it's all really the same data file. You can continue playing on your Switch 1 as well. This is going to be a full technical review covering everything from the battery life of Tears of the Kingdom on Switch 1 versus the Switch 2. We'll have a look at the loading times, the graphics in both portable and dock mode, as well as the FPS. Let's start with the battery life. Switch 2 here is at medium settings, brightness at medium and sounds also at medium. I am connected to Nintendo Online. With the battery at 100%, let's get this test started. After 1 hour, there's 68% battery life. After 2 hours, there's 31% battery life on the Switch 2. I got the 15% warning at 2 hours and 25 minutes. 5% warning came at 2 hours and 41 minutes. The 1% warning came at 2 hours and 47 minutes. And Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on Nintendo Switch 2 powered off at 2 hours and 53 minutes. That doesn't sound too bad, but keep in mind this is a 4-day-old console with a healthy battery. Here's how the Switch 2 compares to all the different Switch 1 consoles over the years. The Switch OLED gets almost 2 times the battery life of the Switch 2. Even the Switch Lite is over an hour better than the Switch 2. One thing to kind of take away from this data is that even the Switch 1 launch edition had somewhat bad battery life. As that console generation progressed from the Lite to the new V2 to the OLED, the battery life got better and better. So maybe, actually not maybe, but for sure, we're gonna get new Switch 2 hardware over the years with better battery life. Just so Nintendo can sell you almost the same console multiple times over the next 6 to 7 years. And yeah, I'm gonna buy it, you're gonna buy it, we're all gonna buy it. Here I tested the Switch 2 version on the new console. I did also want to test the Switch 1 version without updating on the new console, but there doesn't seem to be a way to go back to the old version once you've already updated. I might do that later on, but I'll have to get a new console, create a new Nintendo account. Now let's talk about loading times. Here I'm going from dashboard to continuing my game on both consoles. Switch 2 is a lot faster, taking only 19 seconds to continue playing. Switch 1 takes more than double the time, almost 42 seconds to continue at that same point. Once you're up and running, this game's one big open world. So the only time you're going to encounter a loading screen is during fast travel or when you're entering shrines. Let's now talk about the graphics. Visually, the Switch 2 version's sharper. It's 4K upscaled in dock mode versus the 1080p upscaled on the Switch 1. Everything's sharper, looks a lot better. But is this something groundbreaking? No, not really. I'm okay with the way the game actually looked on the Switch 1 as well. In a YouTube video, I really have to zoom in 4 times to show you the difference in the resolution, especially if you're watching on your phone. On the surface, it's really the same game. Most casual players might not appreciate those improved resolutions, especially if you don't have a high-end 4K HDR TV. Now, since the resolution is all dynamic and upscaled, there are certain areas where the Switch 1's noticeably blurry, like this dense forest. Switch 2 really shows off that sharper image quality during the gameplay when you're actually moving around. I mean, some of those still comparisons I showed where there's no gameplay or movement, they don't really accurately show the improvement. In handheld mode, the update's more noticeable because of that larger, more vibrant screen. Switch 2 runs here at 1080p upscaled while the Switch 1 screen delivers max 720p. Most play in handheld mode, so it's important to showcase how different that console looks. It's really hard to show the difference on camera, but here I kind of set up the camera and the console consoles the same way, max brightness, and really try to capture the size difference of the consoles, the screen color and quality, and of course improvement in image quality and sharpness with that Switch 2. HDR is another new feature that was missing from Switch 1. This makes the game look much more vibrant if you have the right display or TV in dock mode, especially when you're exploring the dark and dangerous depths. HDR is gonna make a big difference there in dock mode, but remember the Switch 2 display is 1080p, 120Hz with HDR support. So even in handheld mode, you're gonna see that difference. And that new display is one of the reasons playing in the depths with this game is a game changer. For now, I don't think the Switch 2 display needs to be OLED, but imagine how good that will look once we get the Switch 2 OLED edition. For me, the higher resolution isn't the main feature here. Best thing about the Switch 2 update is the 60 FPS. The game runs smooth as butter. Switch 2's locked to 60 FPS without any drops, no more lag spikes, no more those odd drops we get at times on the Switch 1. Switch 1 struggles with this game at times. Quite often the older hardware can't hold a solid 30 FPS. In this Apple Orchard, for example, Switch 1 drops below 30 FPS fairly often, while the Switch 2 holds a solid 60 without breaking a sweat. Now even Switch 1 has been patched over the years since launch. Here you see some footage from years back where the drops in that same Apple Orchard are even worse. Beyond the technical upgrade, Switch 2 version also supports Zelda notes. I personally don't care for this feature as much and haven't used it. I don't plan on using it, but it might be helpful and useful to those that need help finding some of those hard to reach shrines or other objectives. And that's what you need to know about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on Switch 2 versus Switch 1. If you can, this is really the way to play the game in 60 FPS with those higher visuals. You're not waiting around for loading times. I guess the one negative is, of course, the battery life. For the rest of the video, check out some more side-by-side comparisons.